The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fred Valles. I'm the founder and CEO of Optimizer. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. So Optimizer is really about PPC and SEM, but my friend Phil came along and said he wanted to talk about SEO, old school SEO, the types of things not to do anymore, and tell you instead what are the newest techniques. So I thought that could be really interesting for our audience. So even though you do PPC mostly, I'm sure you do have teams in-house who focus mostly on SEO. So it could be kind of interesting to know what's happening on the other side of the fence. Now, why is Phil talking about SEO? Well, I was recently doing some research for another webinar that I was presenting. It was on the topic of attribution. So I do a Google search, and guess who I see as one of the top results for a search on attribution? It was an article by Phil. So being in the top 10 of Google is always a great goal. It's great if you can get there. It's not easy to get there. So today, I hope to be learning a little bit as well about how to get to those positions. So Phil, thank you so much for leading this for us today. And you have the floor. Take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Fred. Thanks for organizing this. And as Fred said, we're going to be talking today about the death of old school SEO, so what you should not be doing, as well as the 5 rules you should be following. Let's get the slides going. You should see the next slide on your screen. So some housekeeping here. If you're new to GoToWebinar, you can post questions into the questions box, and I'll be monitoring that as I go, and I'll address questions as they come in. We'll also have a live Q&A at the end. And I always recommend everyone just turn off distractions, get the most out of these presentations if you're not also checking email and your Facebook newsfeed. And to kick this off, I wanted to just get a feel for who's on the line. So let me just show, I had a couple polls here I wanted to launch. I also find these very interesting, get some quick data here. You should see a poll. Are you currently working with an SEO agency? Or are you, in fact, an agency or a consultant? As Fred pointed out, lots of agencies on the line. Actually, about 80% of our attendees today are agencies or consultants, and about 20% are not using an agency or a consultant. Of those that are doing SEO or anticipating to do SEO, what would be your current or anticipated monthly SEO budget? Just to get a feel for the size of the campaigns. I'm guessing the agencies are the ones selecting over 3,000. We've got 44% over 3,000. Then it's spread out across the other budgets. I'm going to close that out. And last question, just to get a feel for what other marketing channels are you using, or what other digital marketing channels to be specific. I have to imagine everyone's going to select that first option, Google AdWords and or Bing advertising. Facebook advertising is another option, email marketing, social media marketing, or other, in which case you could type that into the Q&A box. Wow, so actually nobody using Facebook ads, email marketing, or social media. It's all Google AdWords.
I think it's a single select, right? So people are just choosing the first option there.
Oh, if it is, I apologize. That means I screwed up.
It's all right. It happens. But yeah, not surprisingly, everybody here is on Google AdWords, and a lot of these people probably Optimizer customers. So yeah, that entirely makes sense.
Yeah,
but if people maybe want to use the chat field to tell us what other platforms they're using, so that we can get a sense if they're using just Google AdWords or also social media, email.
Yeah, I see Nicole said you're using Facebook as well. Joachim, all of the mentioned channels. Anna, email. Chris, email. All of the above. Okay. Yeah, so that was a screw up on my end. I apologize. Used the single select instead of the multi-select. All right, let me close out of that, and we'll dive right in. All right, here's what we're going to cover. I want to go through some important Google updates everyone should really understand. Because of those updates, That's basically why a lot of those old school SEO tactics are dead. We'll talk about the 3 specific ones that you want to avoid. I'll talk about 2 tactics you can use to get ranked very quickly. We'll obviously go through the 5 rules. And then for all the attendees, I do have a special offer at the end. Now, out of respect for your time, I want to cover who this webinar is for. You get the most out of this, obviously, if you have a website. That's what we'll be talking about, getting your website ranked. I'll assume you provide top quality products and services. You want to be recognized as the #1 provider. You want to know what it takes to get ranked #1. And most importantly, you're willing to take consistent action. It does require ongoing work, and I'll get to that on the next slide. You don't really want to think about SEO as tricking Google. That's not what we'll be talking about today. I'm not going to go through any ways to manipulate the Google algorithm. We'll be talking more about how to position your website so that you're giving Google what they want to see to rank you high. And SEO is not a set it and forget it type solution. There's no one thing you can do and make kind of a one-time push and then be ranked high forever. It does require some ongoing work. This is your first webinar. Fred and I did a webinar a while ago together, so some of you may already know me, but for everyone else, again, my name is Phil Frost. I'm the founder of Main Street ROI, and our company provides digital marketing services as well as training, like this training today. And we've helped over 2,000 businesses with their digital marketing so far, and my thought leadership has been featured in Forbes, Inc., Amex, as well as Mashable. And this is my favorite slide of the presentation. I'm also the very proud father of these cute kids. That's my daughter Violet on the right. She's going to be 4 in a little bit here on January 2nd. That's my 1.5-year-old son Emmett. He's a little chubby guy. That's my beautiful wife Erin, and we live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. All right, before we get into the old school tactics to avoid, I think it's really important for everyone to understand a little bit about the history of search engines. I promise we'll go quick, but this will kind of give you the foundation to understand what it does take to get ranked high. So back in the days, Fred, you might remember these days, Alta Vista was around. It was a search engine, and SEO was pretty easy. That's because the algorithm was very simple. It was basically looking at words on pages, and if you had a particular keyword showing up on the page more than your competitors, your page would likely be on the #1 search result. Now, it's very easy. Because of that, it was also full of spam. So when you would do a search in Alta Vista, you would find irrelevant search results. And if you remember back in the day, even porn sites would be showing up for regular search results. So it was a pretty big problem that search engines were trying to deal with. And it was mainly because all they were looking at were the words on someone's page. But then Google entered the market, the search market, around 1998, and they had a pretty ingenious plan with their algorithm to not only look at the words on the page, but also look at other websites linking to that particular website. Because every link to another website, you can think of it like a vote in their favor. It's kind of like saying, hey, I'm friends with these guys, I'll vouch for them, and that's what that link represents. So Google would look at how many other websites are linking to a particular page, and they would also look at what those the kind of the quality of those websites. So with that in mind, a lot of that spam got removed from the search results. and Google's search results were better than all the other search engines. They became the #1 search engine, and as you all know, have not looked back since. Now, what you may not be aware of is that Google's revenue and business really depends on search ad revenue. You guys are very familiar with Google AdWords and how that works. People go to Google, they search, they click on ads. Google makes a lot of money from those people clicking on the ads. And because of that, if you think about it, they need to be very careful about what they're showing on the first page of Google. If they let spam into the search results and show irrelevant search results, people will lose trust in Google and they'll go to Bing or Yahoo or some other search engine. So it's really critical for Google's entire business, because they're so dependent on the search ad revenue, that they fight spam. So that's why they hire some of the smartest people out there to work on their algorithm, and they're constantly working to filter the search results and make sure that they are giving the searcher just the absolute best search experience, because again, that's their whole business. If they lose those users, they're just going to lose out on a ton of revenue. Okay, with that in mind, these updates will make sense. So Google's dependent on getting rid of spam. So over the past several years, there have been some fairly well-known updates. This first one here was coined the Panda update, and Google was basically just trying to get rid of websites that gave a bad user experience. So they were looking at low quality sites, low quality content, as well as sites that are hard to navigate. Then they released what's called the Penguin update. This was to counter businesses that were getting links basically in unnatural ways. So they were going out, some businesses and even consultants and agencies were getting links to websites from other websites where the sole purpose of those sites was to link to other websites. There were basically entire blog networks online that were created and maintained for the sole purpose of linking to other websites. That's obviously an effort to manipulate Google. Google figured that out and released the Penguin update to try to get rid of those sites that really didn't belong on the first page. They were just unnaturally getting a lot of links, so it looked like they were a very popular site. Next is Google Plus. Most people are familiar with Google Plus. Google made a big push, and then actually Google backed off on it, and more recently they overhauled it, and it looks like they're going for round 2 of another big push for their social media platform here. And I think that highlights how Google feels about social media and getting that data. And I predict that they'll start to use more of that data in the search results. And the final big Google update here is what was called Hummingbird. This was actually a completely new algorithm. The analogy would be replacing the engine in your car. So they did a complete overhaul of their algorithm, and Google can now understand the context of someone searching, and it's easier for that algorithm to now understand synonyms. For example, for you and me, it's very easy to understand if I say I'm looking for the best place to eat nearby. I'm clearly looking for a restaurant near my physical location. But if you think about it from a computer program, best place to eat nearby is not very obvious what that means, because you need to understand context and synonyms to understand that phrase. So Google now understands that phrase, and rather than optimizing a page that is just talking about best place to eat nearby, Google actually can convert that into, okay, this person's really looking for restaurants, and will rank the top restaurants near that person's physical location. And I'll explain kind of the implications of these updates in just a minute. So let's jump into the first old school tactic to avoid. The first one here is related to the Panda update, and it's specifically you want to avoid over-optimizing your web pages. And if you've studied SEO, you might have come across a term called keyword density, and that's how many times a phrase or a word shows up on the page. And that is basically what I would call an old school term. I definitely would not focus on keyword density. Instead, you want to write naturally, and you want to really be putting copy on your pages for your target audience. So who is your ideal customer? Make sure you're writing the copy for your ideal customer and not just for Google in an effort to rank high. And I'll talk more about elements on the page that you do need to edit, but when it comes to the actual copy on your page, you want to make sure you're writing that naturally, and you don't want to be stuffing keywords on the page unnaturally. And ultimately, it comes down to providing valuable information. If you remember, Google wants to show the absolute best web pages on the first page of Google. They want to give the searcher the best user experience, exactly what they're looking for. So if you're providing very valuable information, that's going to at least get you into the running to be on the first page. Okay, so the second old school tactic is what's called self-created links. And specifically, you don't want to go out and buy links. That's basically against Google's best practices. If they catch you buying links, they won't count that in the algorithm. You don't want to add links from irrelevant websites. So again, when I was talking about the Penguin update, there were a lot of businesses were getting links on websites that were completely irrelevant, because back in the day that would actually help your rankings. It really didn't matter, you know, a link was a link, and the more links you had, the higher you would tend to rank in Google. Now over time that has changed, and it's really more about relevancy and making sure you have links from very relevant, high quality websites. Next is something a little bit more technical. It's called anchor text. Anchor text is just the word or the phrase that is hyperlinked. And then in this example here, you can see beauty school. That's the blue font, and it's underlined, so it looks like a link that you would click on. Beauty school in this case would be the anchor text. And if you wanted to rank high in Google for the phrase beauty school, it would actually help you to have links with anchor text that say beauty school, because Google reads that, and that's a signal to Google that, hey, this website is relevant for this phrase. And again, an old school tactic would be to then go out and get hundreds of links that say that one phrase, beauty school, and that did work. You would get ranked high for that phrase, as long as you had a lot of links with that anchor text. Over time, Google caught on to what people were doing. Again, that's manipulating the search engines by unnaturally getting those links. And if you have a lot of links with the same exact anchor text, it's extremely unlikely that that would ever happen naturally. Businesses will tend to link to other businesses with lots of different phrases and ways of linking to them. Google knows that. So if you have the same exact anchor text as a lot of your links, Google will see that as an unnatural link profile, and that can hurt your rankings. They could basically trigger a penguin penalty, and you could lose your rankings. I did see a question come in here from Craig. Yes, we are recording, and we will send a replay. Typically within about 24 hours, we'll send a replay. Now, ultimately, when it comes to getting links, we know that to rank high, you do need to have other relevant, legitimate websites linking to you. And since I just said you don't want to buy them, you don't really want to just create them yourself, you really want to focus on sharing content online that other people would find valuable. You'll see that as a recurring theme throughout this presentation. You want to just make sure that you're publishing really good information online that other people will find useful or helpful. And then there are ways to then get that in front of other relevant websites, and that gets into more advanced link building tactics, and you can promote that to other influencers online, as well as through social media. But ultimately, it comes down to publishing really good content on your website that people would want to link to. Okay, the third SEO tactic you want to avoid is unnecessary SEO web pages. And this is related to the Hummingbird update we talked about earlier. You want to basically, when it comes down to SEO, the first step, as we'll get to later on, is keyword research. And if you're doing Google AdWords, search advertising, you know how to do keyword research. And you know that when you're doing keyword research on a topic, there's probably going to be a handful of keywords that you could group together, and they're very similar. They might be basically similar phrases with just a few extra words. So that's what we would call a keyword theme or a keyword group. If you're doing a lot of AdWords advertising, you know ad groups. You want to put similar keywords in ad groups. Basically the same concept here. When you do your keyword research, group them together into similar keywords, and then you want to have one page on your website where you're optimizing that page for that keyword group. An old school tactic would be creating multiple pages for very similar keywords. And again, that used to work not too long ago. The example here, let's just say dentist in NYC versus NYC dentist, you would naturally put those in the same group or theme or ad group, whatever you want to say. Those two keywords have the same intent. It's someone looking for a dentist in New York City. Google knows they have the same intent. So for both of those keywords, Google's really just looking for one page on your site to rank for that keyword. Back in the day, it was actually a tactic to break out every single variation of a keyword, and you could create a page 100% focused on that phrase. And that was actually a good tactic to increase the likelihood that you would rank high. But that's an old school tactic you definitely want to avoid. And the reason you want to avoid that is because you want to avoid this email here. We recently started working with a client who had already built out a lot of subdomains and even different websites that were basically the same content, but it was targeting different locations. So this was a business that provided services to a service area, and their tactic was to build out pages specific to those service areas, but it was basically using the same content. And when you do that, Google will recognize that as basically spammy, low-quality web pages, and you'll be likely to get an email like this, which is basically telling you, hey, we've penalized your website because you're creating a lot of spammy web pages. Again, Google does not want to index spammy web pages. It's a waste of their resources. They definitely don't want to show spammy websites in their search results. So this is their attempt to make sure businesses are not creating a lot of duplicate spammy type content. All right, so a couple predictions that are not too hard to predict here. Google's obviously going to continue to fight SEO spam. It threatens their business, and they certainly don't want to risk losing all of that revenue. So you want to avoid keyword stuffing. You want to avoid getting unnatural inbound links to your site, and you don't want to create unnecessary pages for targeting these same keywords. If you're not already aware of this, you definitely should be. Mobile is a huge trend. More people are now going to their mobile to search on Google versus desktops, and that's just going to rise in importance. And Google recently announced what's called the Mobile First Index, and this is going to happen in Q1 2017. At least that's what Google says is going to happen. And at that point, Google's actually going to be looking at your mobile site as the primary website to analyze and determine your search engine rankings. So it's a huge trend. If you don't already have a mobile site, you certainly want to be thinking about that. And then finally,
sorry to interrupt. A few questions. I don't know if you want to take these now or towards the end, but people are asking how does that fit into the context of AdWords when you may have very specific landing pages for certain of your ad groups, and they could actually be very closely related themes. Is Google going to see that as one of these negatives where you're kind of trying to stuff too many pages, or how does that all fit in?
Yeah, it's a great question. So with AdWords, you certainly want to be creating very specific pages for all of your different ad groups. And if you're doing that, and it's basically the same content across pages, a couple ways you can approach that. You can it's called no index the pages, in which case you're telling Google, hey, this is a duplicate page. I'm just going to no index it. Don't put it in your index. Just ignore it. It's just for advertising purposes. Or you can do what's called a canonical tag. And again, that's telling Google this is a duplicate page, and it's a duplicate of this other page that's on the site. And you're telling Google, index this other page, and you tell them that URL. And that way, Google, you could have, 10 pages that are the same, and Google knows there are various reasons why you'd want that, for even usability reasons. But as long as you have that, it's rel equals canonical, and it all points to the one page on your site that you do want to rank, that would be totally legitimate and fine.
Cool, thank you.
Yep. All right, so the main takeaway here with going through the history and some of these updates, hopefully you should see that SEO is not about tricking Google. It's more about partnering with Google. You want to find a way, and we'll go through this in just a minute, find how you can make your website easier to crawl and index, and easy for Google to say, okay, this is relevant for these keywords, and give them the right information so that they are showing you higher in the search results. So that's more about partnering. giving Google what they want rather than trying to trick Google and do anything that could ultimately get your business into trouble. Because there are a lot of tricks or hacks, as they call them, and over time Google ultimately has figured those out, and it's basically a losing battle to try to fight against Google when again their business depends on showing the best results and fighting spam. And I just love this quote here from Wayne Gretzky: "A good hockey player plays where the puck is. A great hockey player plays where the puck is going to be." And if you want to be successful with SEO, it's really important to understand the direction that Google is headed. And that's why I wanted to give you a good foundation in terms of where or how Google has evolved with their algorithm, and then a couple predictions in terms of how they'll definitely continue to fight spam and the rise of the importance of mobile, local, and social. All right, so with that background, let's dive into the 5 rules to follow. To make it easy to remember, they will all start with R. And the first one is research. More specifically, we're talking about keyword research. You guys are all familiar with the, I'm sure you're familiar with the keyword finder tool. You can use the same tool here. You want to look for keywords that have search volume greater than 0. That should be fairly obvious. If search volume is 0, then no one's really searching for that particular phrase. Most importantly, once you do have a list of keywords that people are searching for, you do want to figure out if they have what's called buying intent. And again, you probably understand this if you're advertising in Google. There's 2 types of keywords: research keywords, where people are really just doing research online, or the buying intent keywords, where they're really looking to make a purchase. Very basic example here. If someone was searching dentist in NYC, they have much more buying intent than someone searching how to get whiter teeth. And from a dentist perspective, doing keyword research, if you're not familiar with how this works, you might think, well, my prospects are definitely searching both of those keywords, dentist and NYC, as well as how to get whiter teeth. And you might find, you'll definitely find that a lot of those research keywords have more search volume. So they are very attractive keywords from that perspective, but without understanding buying intent versus research intent, if you just try to target those research keywords, those ultimately are not going to drive as many sales for your business as focusing on the buying intent keywords. We talked about this earlier. You want to group the similar keywords together. Same with advertising, same process. Group the similar keywords together, and you can think of those as your ad groups. In the last step here with your keyword research, you really want to think through, do you deserve to be number 1? Do you actually offer that information? Do you offer that product or service? And really take a look at what's already ranking on the first page of Google, just to get a feel for what's already out there, and are you really going to provide something better for somebody actually searching for that particular keyword. All right, the second rule here is relevance. So after the first step, you'll have your the relevant keywords, and when you're starting out, you want to focus on those buying intent keywords. You'll have all of your buying intent keywords that you want to rank for, and the next step is to make your website relevant for those keywords. This is really marketing 101. You want to match the message on your site to the market. And I mentioned this already. You're going to pick one page for each group of keywords. You're not going to create a page for every single keyword. You're going to have those groups and have one page per group. And you might be wondering, what do you want to actually edit on those pages? And there are three key areas. There's the title of the page, and in HTML, I put that in the parentheses there, the title tags. And then there are headers on the web page, and those are the H1s, H2, H3. Basically, Google's going to look at the title. You can think of it like the chapters in a book. If you open up a book and you look at the different chapters, those chapters ideally are very descriptive and tell you exactly what's going to be in that section of the book. And Google uses a similar process. They're going to look at the titles of your pages to get a good feel for what that page is about. So it's a very critical element on the page. And if your titles are not using your target keyword, then you're missing a huge opportunity to get that page to rank higher. Likewise with your headers, that's just another element on the page that Google looks at to get a feel for what that page is about. And then finally, Google obviously reads the body copy or the words on the page. I already mentioned you don't want to focus on keyword density. If you get the title of your page optimized by putting the keyword in there, and then you use different variations of your keyword in your headers, that's going to tell Google right away that you have a relevant page. Next, Google is going to read the copy on that page and see if, is it relevant? If you are writing about a particular topic on your keyword on your page, it's naturally you're going to write it, and it's going to naturally talk about that particular target keyword. So you don't have to force the keywords in. That's the main takeaway. And Google will then see that, again, it's relevant from the title and headers, and then is it a quality page, and does it have really good, useful information? They're going to look at the body copy for that. The golden rule of relevance, you want to create a page that you would actually want to find if you were the one searching for that keyword. So again, I can't emphasize enough, it's really important for you to actually search those keywords that you're trying to rank for. Look at what's already ranking and just get a feel for, what is ranking, what does Google think people want, as well as, you could identify how you could improve on what's already ranking. You basically take elements of the pages that are already ranking, incorporate those on your page, and then see how you could improve on that. What would you improve on to make it an even better page that would satisfy you as the searcher? All right, the third rule is reputation. So at this point, you've got your web pages set up properly so Google knows they're relevant. But as you probably know, there might be millions of other websites that Google will see as relevant. So how do you outrank all of those millions of websites? And it really comes down to your website's reputation. And your reputation online is also known as your domain authority. And the number one factor is going to be the quantity and quality of links. We talked about this earlier. It's really reputation by association. If other websites that have good reputations or high domain authority are linking to your site, then Google will see your site as another reputable, legitimate website that deserves to rank high in the search results. Similar to your reputation in the real world, if you're hanging out with other people that have great reputations, it kind of wears off on you. You naturally will have a good reputation. And the reverse is true. If you're hanging out with people that don't have good reputations, then that will wear off on you, and people will think that you also don't have a great reputation. So you want to be careful about who you're, quote, hanging out with online, and make sure you're getting basically attracting links from other relevant high domain authority websites. That's the last point on reputation. Just again, focusing on attracting links, creating information on your website that other people would want to link to versus buying links or creating links online. All right, so I promised 2 tactics to get ranked in 30 days or less. I want to go through those now before we get to the next 2 steps, because now that you understand research, relevance, and reputation, you'll understand these 2 tactics. First one is called Piggyback SEO, and what we're going to do is piggyback on other high authority or high domain authority websites. And you're going to publish content, let's say it's an article, with your target keyword in the title of that page, and you're going to publish it on another website that already has a strong reputation or a high domain authority. And because of that, you'll be creating a very relevant page that already has a good reputation. And here's an example. This is a search here for how to create a Google AdWords campaign. And you can see the article here that I highlighted, how to create a profitable Google AdWords campaign. That's published on a website called kissmetrics.com. And that website has a good reputation in Google's eyes, it has a high domain authority. So right away, we've taken care of that 3rd step, reputation. We already know we've got a good reputation. We know it's relevant because I matched the article title to the keyword. So naturally, it's going to be a relevant page that Google wants to rank, and it has a good reputation, so it's going to rank high. And here's another example for the keyword Google AdWords campaign. It's the same article. You can see in the title, it does say Google AdWords campaign, so it's relevant. And again, because it has that, because that domain already has a good reputation, that article ranks high. It's actually the first non-Google website to rank. All right, tactic number 2 is something called local SEO, and this is really it's like a subset of traditional SEO. And instead of ranking your website in the search results, you're actually going to rank your Google My Business profile, and it's going to display in the map results on the first page of Google. So whenever Google notices that you're searching for a local business, for example, if you do a dentist nearby, attorney nearby, Google knows right away you're looking for a local service provider. Then Google will show the map on the first page, and within that map, there'll be different pin drops where those actual offices are, and then below the map, it'll show information about those businesses. So that's what I'm talking about here. That's called local SEO. And it's really the same 3 steps. You'll do your keyword research. The relevance in this case, you're making your Google My Business profile relevant by making sure you select the right categories. And then the reputation is a little bit different. You need online reviews, and I'm sure you're familiar with those. And you also want to get what are called citations. And a citation is just a mention of your business name, address, and phone number listed on another website, most commonly a business directory. So if you're listed in a lot of business directories with your name, address, and phone number, and that information is consistent across the internet, that's a strong signal to Google that you have a good reputation, and that will move you up in the local SEO results or those map results.
Hey Phil, so a couple of e-commerce advertisers are asking questions, and Anna specifically is asking, it seems like Google is having this big push towards local. What do you do if you're an e-commerce store without a physical location?
So this tactic is really only relevant for businesses that either serve local customers and they have a service area, or customers go to your office or store. For e-commerce businesses, this is not a relevant tactic, but traditional SEO is still a relevant tactic. And it really comes down to the intent of the search. And Google knows if someone is searching hardware store nearby, they want to actually go to a physical hardware store, and Google is more likely to show the map results with nearby hardware stores and not show an e-commerce website that's selling hardware supplies.
Right.
Versus,
whereas if somebody was doing a product-specific search and didn't necessarily indicate they were looking for it near my location, then I suppose the shopping ads would show up as one option.
right.
Or you could try to optimize for well, I guess the Google Shopping. It's all paid at this point, right? So there's no real SEO component to that. You have to pay for it, but there is an SEO component in that you still have to optimize your product feeds to have the correct titles and brands and make the description really helpful to Google to show you in the right situation. Anything else you can think of besides shopping ads to help e-commerce?
Yeah, so you can. There are still, for a lot of searches, there'll be the quote natural or organic listings. So at the top, as Fred was saying, Google's really pushing the ads, so the product listing ads and the text ads, and then below all that, you will start to see the organic listings, and you can still use the same process that I went through before, where you're optimizing the product pages to make sure that the title of those pages is optimized for what people are actually searching, and you want to make sure you have headers, so like a nice H1 on that page with maybe a variation of that keyword that you're trying to target. And with e-commerce, you don't need a ton of content on the page, because again, Google knows when someone is searching for information and they're doing research, that person is going to be more satisfied with a very robust web page with a lot of information. But if someone is searching for a specific product, like my Samsung Android, whatever the heck it is, S4, no, that person is looking for a product. They're not looking for a novel. So you don't need to have a ton of content on that page. It's more important that your title matches. You've got that target keyword in the header of the page, and there's obviously information on the page relevant to that particular product. So hopefully that clarified everything.
Yes, thank you.
This is just an example of a local SEO success story, so you can see that it does happen fast. Barney here said, I'm now receiving phone calls for my listing. He said about a month ago. So again, you can see these results very quickly with the Piggyback SEO and for the local SEO. But unfortunately, that's not really relevant for an e-commerce site. So we went through the first 3 R's, and we went through Piggyback SEO and local SEO. And next I want to go through the most important R here, which is revenue. Number one goal here is not just to get ranked number one. You want to actually turn those rankings into sales. And there's really 3 factors. You want to have compelling website copy. That's why I said earlier, focus on writing the copy on your pages for your ideal customer, not for Google. You guys probably already know this, you want to make sure you have social proof. That's critical with any online sale. There's a lot of skepticism online, and you want to make sure you have a strong call to action. These are all really best practices for both SEO and online advertising. A lead magnet might be new to some folks on the line. That would be some kind of free offer on your site that you would present in exchange for an email address. And that's because the vast majority of your visitors coming to your site are not going to be ready to make a purchase. You guys probably see conversion rates of 1%, 2%, 3%, and 3% is pretty strong. So that means 97% of the traffic is coming and leaving. But if you have some kind of offer that's free, what I'm calling a lead magnet, you can capture their email address and then follow up via email marketing and get more sales that way. And the third key factor relates to focusing on keywords that have buying intent versus research intent. And I'm not saying research intent is bad. That's certainly a great tactic to expand your reach, but at least initially, I recommend you focus on the keywords where people are looking to actually make a purchase at that point.
And Phil, a question about that coming from Denitsa. So if you focus on these really specific keywords, these could actually be product numbers or even SKUs where somebody's just looking now for the lowest price. But these tend to be sometimes lower volume than the generic keywords. How do you think about focusing on that long tail where it's a very specific keyword with low volume versus going on the more generic and sometimes also more expensive keywords?
So as it relates to SEO, the very specific keywords, and if we're talking about e-commerce, they're searching for a specific product, that's going to go to a product page. And the less specific search, so in my example here, just because I have my phone right next to me, I've got a Samsung Android S4. So that search would go to the product because it's a very specific search. There's only one product that would match that versus Samsung Android phone is a little bit more generic, has less buying intent, I would argue, than someone searching for a very specific product. That more generic keyword is going to go to a category page on an e-commerce site. So you'll likely have a page on your site that lists all of the Samsung Android phones, and that would include the S4, and I think they've got S5s and S6s at this point, and probably other variations that I don't even know about. But that's how it would work from an SEO perspective. You would still optimize for the less specific keywords on an e-commerce site, and you would ideally have those as category pages on your site. Hopefully that clarified it. Last point on SEO revenue is to make sure you're actually tracking your revenue and your return on investment. And the tool I would recommend you use, or a couple tools, you want to make sure you get Google Analytics set up. If you have an e-commerce site, you want to take that a step further and get your e-commerce analytics set up. And you want to, regardless of your business, have goals or conversions set up so that you can track all of your goals and conversions and even e-commerce sales. You can track that back to the source of the traffic, which in this case would be your organic search traffic, versus you might have your paid search traffic in analytics, and you might even have your Facebook ads and your email channel tracking as well. Google Analytics can track all of that, and you can then tie all of your revenue back to the actual channel that drove the leads and sales. And the other tool for specifically SEO would be Search Console, which used to be called Webmaster Tools. You want to get that set up, and Google will actually tell you if you have any errors on your site, or if they're having trouble maybe indexing different pages. You'll get an alert through Search Console. So that's kind of your communication channel to Google to just make sure everything is set up properly on your site and you don't have any errors. All right, fifth R here is responsibility, and it really comes down to this question: who is responsible for your SEO? You want to make sure either you or someone on your team or an agency or a consultant. Make sure you identify who is responsible, and remember that SEO is not a set it and forget it strategy. It is going to require ongoing work. And I always recommend you only delegate SEO after you understand it. There are a lot of service providers that are actually still following old school tactics that I went through, unfortunately. And now that you understand the basics of SEO and some of the key updates and where SEO is moving, it'll be easier for you now to either hire someone in-house to manage your SEO or find an agency or consultant and be confident that they actually know what they're doing and aren't going to get your website into trouble. And this last slide here is just because there's a lot of fear in the SEO community around Google updates. Everyone gets a little freaked out. That's really the wrong mindset, I think. You should think about Google updates as opportunities, because if you're following best practices, when Google makes a big update, what they're really targeting are the websites that don't deserve to be ranked #1. So those websites will lose rankings, and it really opens up the spots for you to then move up in the rankings, as long as you're doing the right things. So a special offer for attendees is an SEO bundle. We've got 2 training courses: the complete SEO tune-up, which we sell on our site for $97. That is about a 90-minute training where we go through everything you need to do to get your site set up properly, so that Google will know that different pages are relevant for your target keywords. The local SEO formula, which is going through all the steps you need to go through to get your site ranked in the local search results, and a 30-minute SEO audit and SEO consultation, which again we sell on our site for $300. Total value of $494. You can get everything for just $97 by going to mainstreetroi.com/SEO-bundle. And if you're not interested in training, I do want to give you an opportunity to get a free SEO consultation. So on your screen, there's two options: yes or no. And again, if you want training, the bundle is a great opportunity to learn SEO on your own, do it in-house. If you're not interested in that, totally understand, and you can get a free SEO consultation here. So I will close this out, and we can open up to live Q&A. I will not read this, but it's a email from one of our clients.
Well, thank you, Phil. And so we've taken most of the questions, I think, throughout, and we're coming up here on the top of the hour. So for those people who have to go, thank you very much for attending. If you have any questions about Optimizer and what we do on the PPC side, of course, feel free to get in touch with support, and we're always happy to do a one-on-one demo of some of the latest features that we have and show you how you can streamline your AdWords management a bit more. So So let's see. There was a question that we didn't get to, Phil, for those people who want to stay a few more minutes. But Jeffrey was asking, for e-commerce sites that have dozens or hundreds of keyword themes, categories like red widgets as an example, and they have hundreds of products within each of those categories, how do you recommend that they work, since you would have the word red widget appearing on every product page in that category?
Okay, so it would be okay. I guess this is related to me saying you don't want to have duplicate, unnecessary pages. And Google definitely understands if you have, I'll just use my example since it's a little bit easier for me to follow versus red widgets. If we've got the Samsung Android category, that lists all the pages, all the different products that fit that category. And that would be a page that's very relevant if someone was searching for Samsung Android phones. And then within that category, you also have the very specific page, which was Samsung Android Galaxy S3. Yes, it's still using the same core keyword, which was Samsung Android, but it is a unique page. It's going to have unique content on the page, and Google's smart enough to realize that someone searching for the very specific long tail keyword is going to be more satisfied going to that product page versus the category page. I think I interpreted that question correctly, but let me know, Fred, if you think that needs clarification.
Jeffrey's out. If you have follow-up questions, just type them into the box. Got one more question, and I answered that one through chat, but let's get your take as well. So does participating in AdWords improve anything with organic SEO?
No, they are separate. It's as far as directly impacting, the answer would be no. But using AdWords to test keywords is actually a great strategy, because it's not always obvious which keyword has more buying intent, and no matter how much research you do from the start, it can come down to testing, and AdWords is a great tool to very quickly test two different keywords and go head to head and just see, okay, this one actually drove more leads or more sales. I want to optimize my page for that version of the keyword versus the other version. I'm not sure if you had a different take. I couldn't actually see your answer.
Well, I gave the short answer, which you led with, which is no, they don't impact one another. And of course, you have second-order impact. So, I mean, I've heard stories of the organic listing for a company being so good that it actually caused issues for the AdWords ad, because both of the systems will measure what's relevant, mostly based on the click-through rates that Google sees. And so if the organic listing is taking all the clicks, then that can really cause a bad quality score for the ad. Or if the ad was doing really well, then Google might think, hey, maybe this organic result is not so relevant. So you see these second-order effects, but there's no direct correlation. So it's not like Google says, oh, this person spends money with us, therefore we're going to give them some benefit on the organic side. That's completely two separate systems. So let's see, I think that was the last question we had. So we're a couple minutes past the hour. So thanks again, everyone, for attending. Phil, thanks for sharing all your insights on SEO. And if you have any follow-up questions, you got Phil's information, so he can do a consultation for you. And if you have any questions about AdWords, email support@optimizer.com, or you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Silicon Valleys. And you can send me an email directly as well, frederick@optimizer.com. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you on our next webinar.